Greetings everyone and welcome. It's Sunday once more, which means it's time for another episode of the Captain's Table. Those of you who watch my channel regularly are pretty familiar with my release schedule. You may have noticed that last week one of my videos was late and one of my warships videos just simply didn't materialize at all. And there's a very good reason for that. Once again, I am on call at work, and once again, I got called in to take care of after-hours related things. The after-hours call that I received last week here was kind of interesting because I've only ever actually seen this happen one other time, and it was to me a long time ago. Basically, I got a phone call at 10 o'clock at night from a lady telling me that her sink was about to overflow with water that was coming up from the drain. I pretty much knew what the issue was before I even showed up, and realistically, given the nature of the call and the nature of the drain itself, all I wanted to do was remove the water out of the sink. Basically, ultimately, what the problem here was that the drainage line, especially in apartment buildings, from your sink goes into the wall and it links up with a common line. And so everybody above you is on this same line, and everybody below you is on this same line. And what happens is that people being, well, less than intelligent, not fully understanding how things like grease can really cause problems in plumbing, tend to pour cooking oil, cooking grease, bacon fat, and beef fat down the drain when they're draining their items. They run some hot water for a little bit thinking that'll take care of it, but there's only a certain distance that hot water is going to go before it starts to cool off. And if you're on, say, the top floor, running that hot water for 2-3 minutes isn't enough time to get that grease all the way into the main drainage line. And even then, you could still cause a serious problem, as some cities around the world are experiencing nowadays. The solution to this, if you're a homeowner and you ever experience this happening, although you probably won't unless you live in a multi-unit kind of home, so like in a condo complex, is to basically pull off the P-trap, drain the sink, and then run a generally 25-foot snake through the drain. Now, apparently we did have a snake, I just didn't know where it was, and considering I've never used one before, no idea where to begin anyway. And I told my supervisor, realistically, the only thing that I was planning on doing was draining the sink so that it would be good for tomorrow. Of course, he didn't do what I asked him to do, which was go up and take a look at it and see if he could get it. And instead, he decided to call the plumber, who didn't show up until the next day after everybody, well, after all the maintenance people had left, which meant that I had to come back in during rush hour to be present in case the plumber took longer than the 20 minutes that it actually took him to do the job. So I showed up just in time for him to basically finish up the job. Yeah. But you know what? I won't complain, because that's an extra 2 hours of on-call time for me. And the night before, which was also an extra 2 hours of on-call time. So hey, 4 hours of overtime makes me a happy person. Because of both of those days falling on Sunday, well, Sunday night, Monday morning, and then Monday evening, I wasn't fully able to get that Tuesday video out on Tuesday. I spent most of Monday effectively sleeping to recover from having to get called in at 10 o'clock at night and being there until midnight. And then not sleeping well the rest of the night because I was afraid that the sink was going to continue to back up, and then I was going to get a call and it was going to overflow at like 3 in the morning. On Wednesday, my company had a company fun day. If you've ever worked for any company long enough, eventually they will have them, unless they're a crap company and you are just a wage slave, in which case you probably have no idea what a company fun day is. The company fun day, this one being the very first company fun day I've ever attended. Realistically, because it's the very first company I've ever worked for that actually puts them on, and then it's the very first company I've worked for that I also have had time. And when I say time, I mean the fun day fell on my normal work day, and I think attendance was mostly mandatory, so. But it was alright, it was all good. We went down south to Tequila to a venue down there that had laser tag, it had some Nerf, it had some mini golf, some arcade games. They fed us, not the best pizza in the world, but they did provide plenty of drink coupons. You wanted an alcoholic beverage, you were welcome to it. The downside, though, is that this was in Tequila, and I had kind of hoped to take off a little bit early. Didn't work out that way. Ended up leaving about the same time I actually would have normally left work. The problem, of course, is traffic. Normally, when I leave work at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I can get on I-5 northbound, north of the downtown exits, north of the I-5, I-90 interchange. So I can avoid all of that traffic nastiness. In this particular case, coming from Tequila, not so much. And when I pulled Google Maps up and said, hey, go home, because I didn't have to take anybody back to work, it didn't even give me I-5 as an option. It told me to go up 99, which is a little bit longer and a bit slower, because the top speed on 99 is 40 in most places. And it ended up still taking an hour to get home. During non-rush hour, going up I-5 with reasonably light traffic would only take about 30 minutes. So double the length of time to get from there home. After I got home, of course, I found out that my supervisor, who was taking all of my coworkers back to work, because apparently they were leaving, they thought I was sticking around a little bit longer. We left at the same time. They only needed to go to Capitol Hill, which is half the distance that I had to go. It took them an hour to get back to Capitol Hill. I told them that doesn't surprise me at all. Most of the traffic delay and issue was realistically south of the I-90 exchange, south of the stadium. So I'm kind of wondering if there was a stadium event going on that particular evening at like 5 or 6 or something, and all these people were commuting in to it. Because once I got north of those exits, traffic opened wide up, and it took me 15 minutes to get home. Because of that, because of the length of time it took me to get home, and the fun day, wasn't really feeling making a World of Warships video. And being the end of the week, coming up on the end of the week, it ultimately didn't materialize. My hope and goal, though, is to be getting out at least 2 World of Warships videos for you folks every week. Depending on my level of motivation, though, I might step it up to 3, plus the Captain's Table, we will see. You guys have been sending me a lot of replays, and I really appreciate that, because it's providing me a lot of additional content, especially when I'm not in the mood to play or I'm taking a short break. It means I can show your guys' awesome epic battles and not have to worry about playing my own. Of course, right now, I've been having a lot of awesome epic battles, and because it's summer and because it's the weekend, I've been having a lot of awesome epic battles where I've managed to crack an Unleashed, double strikes, be the top of the team with 1800 base XP on a loss. Been having a lot of those, and it's really amazing to see some of these teams that are out there. I had a battle the other day, divvied up with my clanmate, where we actively watched our tier 8 cruiser in Edinburgh, got smoked. All he has to do, looking at the situation, the amount of time left, and the amount of points my team has, all he has to do is not die. That's it. My clanmate was in the process of capping another enemy cap, or another base there on Two Brothers, and he was well out of line of sight and line of fire for the 2 remaining enemy ships. All the Edinburgh, who was in line of sight, had to do was pop a smoke screen and not die. That's it. And we win the game. We win on points. But this guy actively went out of his way to not only leave his smoke screen so he can continue getting visual line of fire shots on the Graf Spee he was picking on, but then, when it became apparent that the Colorado was closing in on him and shooting at him, nope, he didn't get back in his smoke screen. He didn't stop firing and run away. He just shifted his focus of attention to the Colorado. Thank God the Colorado doesn't have the best dispersion in the world. Also, thank God the Edinburgh is a light cruiser, which means the Colorado shells tended to get a lot more over-penetrations than Citadels. We survived, well, I should say, my clanmate survived, the Edinburgh survived, and we ultimately won on points, but it was damn close. It really did come down to if he had died, we might not have won, and that would have been soul-crushing. And finally, in the last bit of World of Warships news, I have finally, for those of you who watched my channel long enough, will be well aware that I have a love affair with the USS Fletcher. I have finally hit my 1000th battle in that ship. Now, the battle that you're watching on screen is actually something like the 996th battle in that ship right now. It's one of those that I was talking about earlier, having a great game, Kraken Unleashed, but sadly no victory. 1000 battle, so expect a special Fletcher episode for World of Warships. I will do my best to remember and show the modules that I have on the ship, the captain's skills, and of course, the 1000th battle. And finally, for this week's episode of the Captain's Table, finalized the plans to visit the USS Texas, also planning on visiting the USS Lexington in Corpus Christi. We do have our tickets booked. That's my father and I. That's the bald-headed gentleman that you see in some of my pictures when I do my trips and post them to Facebook, and of course post some of these pictures in my museum trips videos. He might show up every now and again. We do have our travel dates. We are going down in November on the 5th, I believe, Monday. And we're coming back on the 9th, that's Friday. Doesn't give the longest length of time there, considering we're gonna get in a little bit later on Monday. That's just the way the time shift works. The good news is, on Friday, that means we can leave later in the day, and we can actually get back into Seattle a little bit earlier than normally expected. It's about a 4-hour flight from Seattle to Houston. Fortunately, they fly that non-stop. And with the time difference, I think that's 2 hours at that point. So, 4 hours, 2 hours, going there, 6 hours. Coming back, though, only 2. So we're going to end up leaving Houston some point, I think 7 o'clock at night out of there, and getting back into Seattle at a little bit before 10. Which is always appreciated. Anyway, that's it for this week's episode of The Captain's Table. If you liked the video, of course, hit that like button, and let me know what you think in the comments below. If you're from Houston, or you've been to Houston, let me know if there's anything in particular I should take a look at. Any good restaurants? My dad and I, we do love our good Texas barbecue. Trust me, we like smoked brisket. That's a thing we do. Any good microbreweries, of course, to check out. Any tourist attractions between Houston, Galveston, and Corpus Christi, because we are going to try to hit all of those. I think we'll be renting a car, so that won't be necessarily a problem to get to any of those locations. We do have limited time to do it all, so we might not get to it all, but it is what it is. As long as we get to the museum ships, folks, that's all that matters. And as always, I'll see you next time. This is Captain Rye, signing off.